Hello, hello. Welcome, Lori and Nicole and everybody else. We're so excited to have everyone here. Just gonna make sure everyone's joined, get everyone on here. All right, so we're gonna get started. So welcome back to Tastemaker Talk, where you get to chat with your food creator business besties. I am your host, Chandice Probst, COO of Tastemaker Conference, missing my co-host Abby today, but so excited to be with you nonetheless. We always start with our new food news. We still haven't gotten a jingle for that or, music created, but at some point we will. So new food news. We're very excited. So we're going to start off. So you get to be Daphne. I'm going to have you join us, and I would love for you to be here because the live reactions of Abby are not here today. So I'm going to need your and Michelle's reactions. So, okay, Michelle and Daphne, new food news. And you guys are welcome to join too in the chat. We love hearing what you think about it. So first of all, Krispy Kreme has added a new donut to the menu, and it's Dr. Pepper donut. All right, isn't that crazy?
I want it immediately.
I hate Dr. Pepper. And so but I have a Dr. Pepper cake and Dr. Pepper cupcakes on my blog, and those are delicious. I just don't like the taste of the drink. It's way too weird. It has too many flavors going on.
I will be trying.
Are you a Dr. Pepper girl? You are. Okay. Nicole says she wants to try it too. So she must be a Dr. Pepper girl as well. I'm surprised they leaned in with Dr. Pepper and not Coke. Like that one's like an easy, everyone loves Coke, But nonetheless, that's great. DQ is giving away free blizzards in September, and they have their brand new fall menu, which includes seasonal flavors. So caramel Java chip and old favorites like pumpkin pie. So that's fun. I think Starbucks released their menu last week. I think it's full-blown pumpkin spice season. I saw the funniest reel that was like, this may be an unpopular opinion, and the girl was dipping chips in salsa, and she's like, but chips and salsa trump pumpkin spice every day. And I was like, yes. I will take the chips and salsa every day. But
Why not both though? Chips and salsa and pumpkin spice.
I enjoy a good fall flavor. At our house, we always set up a hot cocoa bar for the holidays. And so this year I told my kids we are going to set up, I have a bunch of, I love, not Tarani is okay, but I love the other brand of simple syrup, and I got a Biscoff flavored one, and I'm so excited. So I'm going to set up kind of like a steamer hot cocoa station in our kitchen. The kids are very excited. So
that sounds delicious.
I think I'll save money if we do it at home.
Yeah.
Create it at home. So, okay. Just a couple other things. It's the summer of cucumber salad, is it not? Like cucumbers are going viral everywhere. Have you guys seen this?
Really?
Oh,
not
yeah.
on my algorithm.
Okay, so this guy named Logan Moffat has gone insane. He's been posting near daily cucumber salad recipe videos, and they've gone completely viral. And I know a couple of my friends, like which one of my friends she had a cucumber salad on her. Oh, Chelsea, my friend Chelsea from Chelsea's Messy Apron. She had a great cucumber salad recipe on her blog and TikTok, and it's been there for years. And someone's like, you just copied Logan. And she's like, it's been there a while. But it's funny how one person can make everything just go crazy. So it's the
I
summer.
heard stores are running out of cucumbers. Like
Yes.
they've been sold out at grocery stores.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the feta thing again. Remember when everyone's doing baked feta pasta and no one could find feta? No one can find cucumbers because everyone's doing you like shave them into a cut, like a container, like a to-go container. You like cut them on a mandolin. And then he does like, I saw one with kimchi, and then he just shook it and he's like, and there's your cucumber salad. I'm like, great. Or he's done ones with like mayonnaise and sour cream. Like he's done creamy ones, but it's like every day he makes a new cucumber salad. So the stores are running out of cucumbers. So if you need them, go grab them and then let everyone know that they're there at that store because a lot of people can't find them.
I've seen a lot of people using them like in the skincare realm. Like you freeze it like an ice roller, and then in the morning you cut off like part of the cucumber so you have a clean, and then you like cucumber ice your face. So maybe that's also why they're running out. It's just the summer of cucumber.
It is. Okay, so if this is happening, I want to know if someone at the National Cucumber Board did their job really well.
Maybe we need to get them at Tastemaker.
Because we've had the Watermelon Board, we've had the Idaho Potato Commission, and they're amazing. I want to know who at the Cucumber Board did their job really, really, really well.
We will look into that.
Yeah, let's look into that. So the last new food news is these cute neighbors raised $20,000 for a boy after his charity ice cream stand was shut down. It was so cute. So in Norwood, Massachusetts, a 12-year-old boy had a sweet surprise after city officials shut down his ice cream stand. They he started this stand, and his family days later received a letter from the Board of Health ordering it to shut it down. The town officials received a complaint. Anyways, they were surprised and upset, but then they were able to raise $20,000 from his cute neighbors because they felt so bad that it got shut down, and it was raised for his hockey team. I just thought that was so cute. A kind of a feel-good story, you know? I mean, what 12-year-old's ice cream stand gets shut down?
Right. And $20,000 is probably more than he would have pulled in. So
You know,
all for the best.
yeah, so it worked out, you know?
That's
But
cute.
anyways, that's our new food news for the day. So go grab your Dr. Pepper donut and your new flavor of whatever at DQ and help your neighbor if their ice cream stand gets shut down. Okay, so we are, let's see. There was also some other things. Let's see. I saw, Daphne, did you guys add in a couple of these new food news things as well? Like the fruit roll-up ice cream and the butterboard?
Those were from a previous
Okay.
episode.
I was like,
Don't worry about those. We can move on
Okay.
to community updates.
Okay, sounds good. So I don't know if all of you have your tickets yet, but we're so excited for Virtual Tastemaker Conference. It's coming up on September 13th, so in just a couple of weeks, and summer is slipping away so quickly, but I'm here for it because I love fall. So you can buy your ticket today to secure your spot, and it's all about monetization and diversification of income streams, which is great. We have incredible speakers. We have great on-demand sessions, so we're really excited. So Daphne will drop that link there. And we would love to see you at VTC. So today our topic is reducing food waste for food bloggers. And we are so thrilled to be joined with Michelle Sendowski, the co-creator of Supercubes. So Supercubes makes freezing and reheating soup, stocks, and loads of other foods so easy and convenient, as well as fun and sustainable. Plus, we're excited to welcome Supercubes as a sponsor of Tastemaker Conference 2025 in Las Vegas. So Michelle, welcome to Tastemaker Talk. We are so honored to have you here to chat with us today. And we'd love to have you introduce yourself to the audience before we dive in.
Well, thank you so much, Chandice and Daphne, for inviting me. I'm so excited to speak with everyone today. I love talking about all things food, meal prep, blogging, and how we can all think about reducing food waste in our own kitchen. I've been a huge fan of Tastemaker for years. I first discovered you when a lot of our food blogger friends went to the Portland Tastemaker Conference, and I told my husband, who I run Supercubes with, like, I needed to be there. I like everything about what they're doing. It's just so important. And so we bought tickets for the 2020 conference, which of course did not happen in person, but ever since I've told Jake, like, we have to go to Tastemaker. So it's a huge honor to be able to sponsor part of the conference in Vegas. A little bit about myself. I'm a mom to two little ones. I have an 8-month-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and that impacts a lot of how I think about food and getting food ready for our family and for ourselves and for school lunch. And it's also how I think about a lot of the recipes that I try to add to our own website. And we also have a dog who decided to come with me. So he's sleeping on the floor, so he might say hi a little bit later. But a little bit more about kind of like my background and how we came into Supercubes. I'm an educator by training. I used to be a teacher, and I spent most of my career working in colleges. And when my then boyfriend and I were living in Palo Alto, we were trying to figure out how to freeze soup. Jake loves soup a lot more than I do. And so we had a lot of leftovers, and soup was one of those things that you make in your big stock pot. And I just didn't want to eat it every day for 10 days until we went through it. And so we talked about freezing and how do we freeze it. And Jake's an engineer, and he is always trying to figure out how to solve all the things that I complain about. And so he drew what is now our 1 cup super cube, our original tray, which I have next to me. Our first one was in our signature aqua color. And so we got started as a company in 2017. And so we've been around for a few years. We went on Shark Tank in 2021, which is really exciting. But we've been doing this for a few years now. We've grown our team to a few more employees. And so we're really passionate at the company about freezer meal prep and how to get food from the freezer to the table quickly and easily.
Love it. It's so amazing. And we're so glad you're here because it just feels so timely with the way we talked in our new food news before about how prices of groceries have increased 35% and 40% if you factor in gas to go get them. Isn't that crazy? And so to be able to utilize leftovers and do it in a way that's easy and convenient is so perfect for our audience. And for us as food bloggers, when we make stuff to test, we don't want any of it to go to waste.
That's exactly right.
So, and then I know you've gone viral on Instagram for your simmer pots as well. So tell everyone what a simmer pot is.
Yeah, so if you've ever gone into Williams Sonoma, they often will have a pot in there, like next to the cashier, of like different fragrances that are just like so delightful, with like apples and cinnamon and cloves, and they put it just in a pot with water. And one of the things that I was thinking about was like, I wish there was a way to kind of like prep this in advance, because I don't always have fresh oranges or fresh apples in my refrigerator. And so I made a video of just making like several simmer pots in what is our 2 cup cube. So that's this one. They're like really big, gigantic 5-inch square cubes. And then I froze them with like all of the different fragrances. And then when you want to use it, maybe you have friends coming over for dinner, you just throw it in a pot and add some water and then just let it simmer all day. And it's a really easy kind of natural fragrance. And one of the things that I've done very recently, I haven't shared it on our social yet, but I've been making a lot of applesauce for my little daughter who just started purees. And so I took all the cores and the peels and all the kind of odds and ends fruit in our fridge that would smell really good. And I made it with that. So it's like another way to reduce food waste. And now when we have friends or family coming over, I just put it on an hour before they come, and it makes the house smell delightful. And it's takes no more than a minute because it's already prepped in my freezer. So that's been kind of like a fun, unexpected way to use our trays.
I love that. And I think everyone loves that's a great first start into reducing waste by the leftovers of the cores and the peels. So let's dive right in a little bit more into that. What responsibility do food bloggers bear when it comes to using sustainable practices to help reduce food waste?
It's a really great question. And I think like the reality is like, we don't always get a recipe right the first time we make it. We might have like a vision for how all the ingredients are going to come together, and then we have to like tweak it. And so either like the first batch is like really bad, which I've had happen before, or the flavor profile isn't quite what we want. And so we're making things again and again and again before we put it on our website. And so what that means is that like food bloggers and recipe developers are engaging with like a lot more food than the average consumer is, which means that they're potentially contributing to a lot of waste if they're not able to think about how to use it all and how to extend the shelf life. And so I think for food bloggers, because we are purchasing so much food in order to come up with these recipes, it's important that we think about like, what is it going to look like at the end of the day when we're done filming or we're done writing the recipe? And so one of the things I think that's like really important is when we're thinking about like buying food is like, are there ways to like repurpose things that we already have? This helps us reduce food waste, but it also helps us save money. I know each time I go recipe test and like I'm not taking pictures, like I'm just in the development stage, I always try to grab things from the freezer that I had leftovers of, whether it's chipotles in adobo sauce or tomato paste. And like over time, this adds up to a significant amount of savings, but it also adds up to just like far fewer things that I have to buy. And like what we see in the US is anywhere from like 30 to 40% of this food supply ends up getting wasted every year. This is 133 billion pounds of food, or $161 billion worth of food. So it's pretty astronomical. A lot of the food waste happens before it ever hits the consumer, but there's a lot that happens where we had vegetables that went sad in our drawer because we used part of them for a recipe and then we didn't need them again. Or, we were worried that the milk or the dairy product would spoil. And so we threw it out instead of risking it. And so there are a lot of ways that we can kind of practically reduce food waste, and using your freezer is one of the easiest ways to extend the shelf life of food.
I love that. And it's so convenient because everyone already has like a freezer. And then so to just add super cubes to that regimen is very helpful also. I love that. So can you share some of the best practices you've encountered for reducing food waste in recipe content creation and highlight how food bloggers can utilize them in their own kitchens? So we talked about the why. Let's talk about how we can apply that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to do, whether I'm like batch cooking for the freezer, like I recently had a baby and I was thinking about like my postpartum stash, or I'm in like recipe development mode because we do have recipes on our website, is I try to think like, are there recipes that I can think of today that have a lot of overlapping ingredients? And so if I know I don't always use cilantro in my own cooking, or I don't always use heavy cream, but I need them today for recipe development, are there 2 or 3 other recipes that I can kind of play around with that are also using those ingredients, so that I'm having far fewer of them kind of going back into the drawer in odd portions and more of them going into final dishes? And so one of the first things I always recommend is try to stack recipes with overlapping ingredients. And so I do savory recipes on one day, and those tend to be different than days where I'm doing development for sweets, just so that I can kind of use up as much as I can. The second thing I try to do is I just try to freeze everything immediately that I didn't use in that recipe, unless I have a concrete plan for how to use it. So sometimes I'll buy a carton of broth as an example for a recipe, and the recipe needs 6 cups of broth, but the carton is 4 cups. And so I used 2 cartons, I have 2 cups left over. One thing I can easily do is just kind of like put it in the back of my fridge and like hope that I'll have some inspiration to use it later. Maybe it'll be cooked in quinoa, maybe I'll saute vegetables in it. The reality is, if I don't have a plan for it, it probably will stay there for a long time, well past the date that it should be there, and then it ultimately gets discarded. So if I know I don't have a plan for these like 2 cups of broth, I immediately freeze it in a portion that makes sense to me. Or if I know I opened a can of Chipotle and adobo sauce and I only needed 1 or 2 for my chicken tortilla soup, I immediately freeze the rest of it in our 1-ounce portion so that I can easily use it again later. So I think not only thinking about like which recipes are you testing on which days, but just like acknowledging we forget about our stuff all the time in the fridge if you're kind of like everyone else. And so just freeze it. Even if you're using it a week later, it's best to have it in the freezer than it is in the refrigerator, to reduce any chances of bacteria growing and then potentially making you sick.
I love that idea of batch testing. I think we all know about batch work. Like we do our photography, our computer, we do batch work, but how about batch recipe testing? That's so genius. I hadn't thought of that, of like, okay, are we making, because the Chipotle with adobo is the perfect example every single time. I have never once finished the entire can. And so knowing that like, okay, so I am going to make this Southwest soup, what else can I do? Because not only that, but I think it sparks creativity to be like, okay,
Yeah.
you have this ingredient, let's use it a little bit more. Because then if that soup does well, then you know your audience likes those flavor profiles and you already have something else in that wheelhouse for them.
That's
So I think that's
exactly right.
Michelle.
Yeah. Same with like things like even like herbs. Like, okay, I can make in like Middle Eastern cuisine, I'm Middle Eastern, there's something called khlouk, which is like a lot of like herbs kind of blended together. So like maybe I'll have some of the parsley for a vegetable soup, or maybe I'll put some of the cilantro in like Mexican dish, and then I'll like blend them all together and have a different kind of condiment. And so I always try to think like, are there other recipes that I want to try or that I know that I like that also use these? Unless it's something that I like always have, like carrots. Like I always have carrots in my fridge. But if it's something that's a little bit more unusual, I always try to kind of like batch all the recipe testing in like a couple of days span.
I love that. I wish I would have been thinking about that when I was doing a lot of my charcuterie boards, because I was like, what am I going to do with all this? I mean, my kids can only eat the charcuterie for so long. And then I'm like, that would have been good to utilize that in other things rather. Yeah, we still ate almost all of it, but they probably would have enjoyed something new. My husband jokes when I make a roast chicken, he's like, oh, good. So we're going to have soup for 3 days after this then, huh? And I'm like, yep, every time, every time. So I love that. Michelle, in what ways can food bloggers utilize leftover ingredients creatively to minimize waste? And could you provide some examples or recipes that have been particularly successful with that?
Yeah, so I always try to freeze a mix of single ingredient items and finished products. So a single ingredient item for me might be like roasted eggplant. I sometimes will roast more than I actually need for a recipe, and then I just freeze it. I tend to freeze it in our half cup tray. And then I freeze it because like that's something that takes me a long time to prep. I got to get the grill hot. I have to roast it. I have to steam it. It's an ordeal. As a mom with young kids, it's not always something I have a lot of time for. So then I will freeze it in our half cup tray. And then if I want to make baba ganoush, it takes me less than a minute to reheat the half cup cube, add some garlic, add some tahini or mayo, however you choose to make baba ganoush, and then it's done. But at the same time, let's say I'm craving Indian food and I want baigan bharta, which is an eggplant-based curry. I can also add it to like tomatoes and onions and all of the yummy ingredients that are involved in that. And so I try to do a lot of single ingredient recipes because it gives me opportunities later to mix and match. Another one is heavy cream. Sometimes I buy it at Costco because it's such a great deal. But it is like a very large container of heavy cream at our local Costco. And so I might use some of it for a creamy tomato soup, and then I will freeze the rest of it. I tend to freeze it in either half cup or 1 cup portion. So I can make a creamy turkey wild rice soup later, or I can make tikka masala later, or I can make a corn chowder later. And so cream actually freezes and reheats really well in soups and sauces. And so I want to have kind of flexibility in how I'll use it later. The other way that I do a lot of kind of like creative uses is I learned this from my mom is if we have a bunch of random produce that's more like vegetable based left over, I'll almost always turn it into a soup or a sauce because I find it really forgiving. And so all of our like I label it all the same, but it's like pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce. It's always a little bit different based off whatever I needed to use in my drawer. So I might do a base of tomatoes, but I'll add zucchini and onions and bell peppers and like whatever I need to use. I'll kind of like just throw it all in there and then blend it together. And it's great for the kids to have a veggie packed sauce, but it's also delicious and it gives me the opportunity to just go through more of my produce drawer. And I would say like soup similarly, if I worry that I won't be blended well with tomatoes, I usually make some sort of like lentil soup or barley soup, and I kind of just like throw in all the vegetables. And the reason I do a lot of soups and sauces is because almost all the time you can reheat them really well afterwards. So if I know I'm not going to get to all the bell peppers, my son just turned 3. And so we had like a vegetable platter and I bought a lot of little bell peppers for a dip. I really hate raw bell peppers. I think it's like the worst thing in the world. I will not eat it under any circumstances. I tried giving it to my husband yesterday with ranch dip. He will not eat it either. And so today all of that will become shakshuka and it will be like close enough. And shakshuka I love, but like raw bell pepper I cannot stand. And so I think a lot of it is like thinking about like if maybe it's not your favorite or your kid's favorite or your partner's favorite. Is there a way to like repurpose it so that you're not like throwing away all the bell peppers and you're kind of just like hiding it into some other dish? And so I do a lot of soups and sauces. On the fruit side of things, I tend to blend those single ingredient in our little tray, our 1 ounce tray. And then those almost always end up being purees for my daughter. And so I just mix and match the fruit, but you can make it into a smoothie as well if you like smoothies.
I love that. Well, when I had my first son, I remember buying Jessica Seinfeld's Deliciously Deceptive cookbook. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that one.
It's Jerry Seinfeld's wife, and she did a cookbook all about sneaking veggies into everyday foods. And I thought, this is so great. But it was a lot of work. It was so much work because I was like, oh my gosh, it's way more work to like sneak this in and chop it. But if I would have had it frozen, it wouldn't have been. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I would have already had those things frozen that I had left over from something else. It would have been very easy. But where I had to start from scratch, I felt like this is not working very well for me. So I love the idea of having them in the freezer and being able to utilize them and things. I love baba ganoush and I've always wanted to make it, but it seemed so overwhelming to me. I know it's not. I know it's so easy.
Yeah, it's just a few ingredients. There's different ways depending on like which country you're from, but it's one of the most delicious dips, I think, in existence.
It's my
Like,
favorite. I love it. So
just
I
really.
I know a lot of people wonder about dairy being frozen. How does the
Yeah.
dairy-free cream unfreeze?
So that is such a good question. So like one of the biggest contributors to food waste in our country is actually dairy. People have a lot of anxiety about like, is it good? Is it spoiled? Am I going to get sick? I don't know. I'm just going to throw it out. And I know like when I'm looking for recipes for something I want to cook in like my own, like for dinner tonight, I go to other people's websites all the time and I see a lot of times people will say like, you can't freeze this because there's dairy in it. But I know that I've made something very similar and I've frozen it and it's been totally fine. And so I would say with dairy, a lot of it is like, it depends on how you want to reheat it. So if you're going to freeze heavy cream or you're going to freeze like buttermilk, I tend not to use it in like a cold application afterwards. So for heavy cream, you can't really whip it as well because it separates the fat. And so that's hard. But if you put heavy cream in a soup or a sauce, you'll never know that it was previously frozen. Same with like buttermilk. I use buttermilk all the time that was frozen to make pancakes and to make waffles and to make biscuits and to marinate chicken. You would never know, but I tend to not use it to make like a ranch dressing with fresh buttermilk. And so what I always say is like odds are you can freeze dairy, you just might have to have it cooked. If it's something that's milk based, if it's something like a yogurt, like I have this happen all the time. We'll go out of town. I have way too much yogurt in the fridge. I kept forgetting we have yogurt at the grocery store and I kept buying it. And now I have like 3 cartons of yogurt that my family can't eat fast enough. Is I will freeze that in little portions. I don't like it fresh, but I'll put it in smoothies. Or if it's like plain Greek yogurt, I'll like throw it in mac and cheese, like for extra protein. And it gets kind of hidden in there. The only type of dairy I've had a really hard time with is like a soft cheese. I do find that it's just not gonna thaw as well. But if it's like a hard cheese, cheddar or Parmesan, you can go ahead and freeze it. My best tips for like dairy is like if you're not sure, just freeze a little bit. Like the only dairy dish that I haven't been able to like freeze well is Alfredo. The texture is not quite right for the recipes I've tried, but like chowder, cream of mushroom soup, like creamy wild rice, like turkey soup, if you have a lot of like leftovers from Thanksgiving prep, those all freeze like a dream. Alfredo is the one that I have a harder time with though. So if you're not sure, you can probably freeze it, but just freeze a little bit to double check.
I love that. I love it. Thank you. So how can food bloggers leverage tools like super cubes to better store and preserve food? And what are the key benefits of using such tools in reducing waste?
So when Jake and I first started freezing food, he comes from a family where his mom freezes food all the time. I do not. My mom freezes like very few things, and she still is like confused about the freezer. Like I said, I'm Middle Eastern, and when I told my mom, "Oh, you can freeze hummus," she was like, "Oh, but I can make it fresh." And I'm like, "No, I know, but sometimes people might come over and you want it." And it took me like 4 years, but now she freezes hummus as well. So when I think about like how did my mother-in-law always like freeze food? It was in like a gigantic container because my mother-in-law is always cooking for like 20 people, even if 5 come. And like there have been times where I like see her trying to like break out the like big thing of broth out of this huge container and put it in a pot. Or I have friends who like they're freezing in plastic bags and they're tearing in the freezer because there was something sharp that they didn't see they placed it on, or the glass shattered. So there are lots of ways to freeze food, but when we were trying to think about like what is it that we would want in our own kitchen, because like Jake and I were working different jobs. The plan was never to have super cubes be our job. It was just how do we create this tool to help us in our own kitchen? We really wanted something that was durable but also flexible. So our trays are all made out of silicone, so you can bake in them if you want to make little mini loaves. I just baked a lot of zucchini bread, actually in these little ones so that I can put them in my son's lunchbox. And this is usually the size that I make for myself. This is a slightly bigger one. But what's really nice about super cubes is that they're made out of silicone, but they also have steel. So like I know a lot of people might have silicone and it's kind of like wobbly and you have to put it on the sheet pan and then the sheet pan takes up half of your shelf. This has steel inside it, so it will never fall if you're holding it. And there's fill lines, which are a little bit hard to see because I picked a darker tray, I guess, by mistake. But they're both in metric and imperial. And I think that's something that's really important. A lot of times, I know when like before Super Cubes was created, when I would go over to Jake's apartment and he's like, oh, let me grab spaghetti sauce from the freezer. It would just be in all these random containers. And he's like, oh, I think this much and that much and this much. And he's like trying to put it all together. And he's like, I think that's enough for a pound of pasta. Whereas like now I know for our family, like 3 cups of pasta sauce is kind of like our happy spot for a pound of pasta. And so when you freeze in portions, you're reducing food waste because you're reheating the exact amount you need. I know sometimes people will say, oh, like, is like the 1 cup tray, does that mean that I can only have 1 cup? No, this is not a suggested serving size. It's just an increment in which you reheat. So we love chicken tikka masala in our house, and we know that for like when Jake and I reheated, like 3 cups is our happy spot as well. So I'll either take a 2 cup and a 1 cup, or I'll just take 3 1 cups, however I froze it. And so it's really about being thoughtful about what quantities do I often use this food in, and then how do I freeze it intentionally in that, instead of trying to guess like how much is in this bag or how much is in this container. I don't know what the volume of it is. And so that was kind of our idea. And we find we've now sold over 2 million trays. Our customers have said that it like really has made freezing a lot more fun for them. Like it's something that they never really did because it was a pain point to figure out later. And now that everything is in a block form, we always recommend transferring it to a bag so it's more space efficient. They just like enjoy it. It's like a Lego in your freezer. Your freezer is a square, so the food frozen in it should be square too.
I love that. And I don't think I've seen a cuter idea than the tiny zucchini breads in your son's lunch. Are you kidding me? The fact that you can bake and then go right to the freezer is genius.
Yeah, he really likes them. He thinks they're really fun. And like something I recorded this, but I haven't posted the reels yet. Something that I just tried for fun because sometimes he comes back from preschool. We switched his preschool this year. You know, there's a lot of big feelings in his little itty bitty body. Is I actually have a tray in our freezer. I'm not next to my freezer, so I didn't bring it. But I bought a like box of yellow cake mix. Like I didn't even make it to make it easier for myself. And I didn't want him to eat all 12 like cupcakes that I was going to make out of it, 'cause that's too much for a 3-year-old. And so I froze the yellow cake batter in our little 2 tablespoon 1 ounce tray. And then we put little toppings on it. So some have pink sprinkles and some have chocolate chips and some have rainbow sprinkles. And I have silicone like cupcake liners that you can just get on Amazon. They're not our product. And so what I do if he's having a tough time and he wants like a fun little dessert is I just like pop them out, the cake batter. I put it directly in a cupcake liner. I freeze from frozen, and in 12 minutes he has a cupcake. And I didn't have to get a bunch of bowls dirty or take out the measuring cups or open up like a new box. And so there's lots of, I think, like fun, unexpected ways to use your freezer. If you know you're not going to eat a big portion of something, because it's pretty hard to make for just one. Like it's almost always you have leftovers.
It's so cute. And so with the zucchini bread, do you just pop it in his little lunchbox frozen, and then by the time it's time for lunch, it's unfrozen, or do you unfreeze it the night before?
I'll just leave it on the counter as I like prep the food. And so by the time I'll nurse my daughter, then I like go get his lunchbox out. Oh, I have to help him like out of his pull-up. Like the whole morning routine, by the time I open up his lunchbox, it's completely thawed. But you could also just microwave it for 20 seconds at that portion and it'll be warm.
I love it. Lori has a question. She wants to know if you use a spreadsheet app or anything like that to keep track of your freezer inventory. She says she'll periodically do this and then use the spreadsheet for inspiration of what to cook and create. However, keeping it up to date can be a challenge.
That is such a good idea to have inventory. I really like that. I think for me, it depends on what kind of freezer you have. Really shapes how you can keep track of things. So in my garage, I have an upright freezer, just like the big door that opens. And what I do is 2 things for inventory is I will first put everything organized by bins. You can like get bins at the Container Store. You can also just use like a box. Like it doesn't have to be clear and expensive and pretty, but like I use clear bins. And since everything is frozen in bricks, that's then put in bags, it's like very easy to kind of like stack it. And we have tape that we sell on our website, but you can use any masking tape. With a Sharpie, I write each item that's in the bin, and the bins are always grouped by like items. So like I might have a bin for like more Italian themed dishes. So I'll put spaghetti sauce and lasagna, and I actually freeze arancini in our little 1 ounce one. And then I just spread it before frying whenever I have leftover risotto, because I don't like making risotto, but I really love arancini, so that I always make like a double or triple batch. And so I write whatever is in the bin. And so when I open the freezer, I can see, oh, I have arancini, or I have lasagna, or I have whatever it may be. And then once that food item goes out, I take the sticker off. I don't add dates personally because food is really good, like indefinitely in the freezer. It never goes bad as long as your food is consistently frozen. The quality of the food is less yummy over time. So I know what kinds of foods take me longer to eat. So I do a lot of tiramisu because I think it's one of the best desserts, but we don't eat it that often. So tiramisu, I always vacuum seal. Same with our raw meat after it's been frozen in super cubes, because it kind of gives me a little bit more space to decide, when am I going to like thaw it? Is it still going to be yummy? But like an easy workaround, if you have an upright, is to just put like the name of the dish with the sticker and then the date, and then just try to say like, okay, I'm going to try to like go through this one because I made it January 24th or December 23rd. But even that system isn't perfect. Like I know there are a couple of dishes that I've like emptied out of the bin. I was making like a burrito bowl night, and I thought I had black beans because the bin said black beans, and I realized I forgot to take the sticker off. So I think a lot of it is like, once a month saying, I'm going to spend 10 minutes to go through my freezer and just like see what's in there. And you could put on a spreadsheet, you could put a sticker, but I think a lot of it is like once a month, go through it. And then what I will do is I just take like a Post-it note and I put it near the fridge. And I say like, these are 5 things I want us to eat this week out of the freezer. And I tend not to do like, this is for Monday, this is for Tuesday, because like it could be that both of my children were up all night screaming, TVing, growing pains, nightmares, and I need to pick the easiest to reheat option off the list. Or it's like, oh, actually they slept through the night. That's so nice. Like I have a little bit more bandwidth to make something more complicated, but I'm a big fan of stickers on bins. I find that has worked best for us, but I do know there are a lot of people who do have spreadsheets or like whiteboards, and that it's worked really well for them. I just know that I don't have the bandwidth to maintain like a sheet. Maybe when they're older and in school, I can take that on.
I love hearing like what you said about like actually food is pretty good indefinitely if it's consistently frozen. It just doesn't taste as well over time, because I always freeze our leftover turkey bones from Thanksgiving. And I got in my freezer and I was like, I haven't eaten those yet from last Thanksgiving. And I was like, they're probably fine. So I put them in my deep freeze, so they were good. And I put them in my crock pot, and it was the most delicious bone broth. And I was like, how sad if I would have thrown this away because, it's been 6 months, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, so with like the FDA, they have a lot of great guidance, which I encourage everyone to check out, about like food contact safety and food storage guidelines. And it always says like, best if used within 3 to 4 months in the freezer, but that's because of like taste and freshness and not because of safety. And so if, you have a power outage and your freezer went out, that's totally different. But if your food has always been consistently frozen, it's safe indefinitely for years and years and years. It might not taste as yummy. And so if you know that, I have a lot of raw meat, I don't make bone broth that often, you want to think about like how you're storing it to minimize exposure to air. But food is always safe, even if it's frozen, even if it's like freezer burnt. And so I think a lot of times people think if I eat something freezer burnt, it's not safe. It's probably horrible to eat, and I wouldn't encourage you to eat it, but it is like safe to eat. It's just freezer burn as a result of like the moisture getting kind of like sucked out of whatever that food item is. And I do think kind of like on a similar thing, something that like we get a lot of questions about with our customers is like, oh, I froze something and I noticed that there was frost on it the next day, and I think that's freezer burn. Like, is it no longer safe to eat? And what I always tell our customers is like freezer burn happens over like a long period of time. And so what likely is the case is that you put in something that's just a little bit warm, like maybe you thought it was room temp, but there is still some trapped steam within the lid, and then that became condensation, and then that froze. And so that's frost. So that's also something to think about. Like even if there's like some ice crystals, that doesn't mean that it's not safe to eat. But it might not be as like yummy as when you first put it in the freezer.
I love that. Well, I know we've talked about that. That's one of the misconceptions I'm sure people, think about with freezing food. And we've talked about the dairy. But I want to know if there's any other misconceptions that you hear often and how food bloggers can address these through their platforms to promote more sustainable cooking habits.
Yeah, so I think like something that I notice as like a consumer when I'm looking for recipes is that um a lot of the recipes just like don't have sections about freezing on them. It's about like reheating and how long they're good in the fridge. And what we've seen with our customers is that like the cost of groceries really is astronomically high these days. And for a lot of people, they need someone, an authority figure to hold their hand and kind of like show them, how do I use this? Like I have every week someone asking me, how do I reheat soup? And we have resources online. And so we tell them like you can put it in a pot, you can put it in the microwave, like you can reheat it in so many ways. And to me, it might be something that I think is obvious, like put it in a pot. But not everyone has that comfort with food and with cooking. And I think freezing is kind of like that next thing. And the reality is like a lot of the recipes that are made, unless you're like specifically a food blogger that's like cooking for one or cooking for two or cooking for false small families, is that your recipes will yield a bigger portion. And so having some sort of information on like, can you freeze the food? How do you reheat it? I think can help a lot of people think about like, okay, I didn't get to using it. I went to a restaurant last minute with a girlfriend, my kids were sick, no one was hungry, like whatever the reason you have leftovers, it can give them kind of the confidence to say like, yes, you can freeze it, don't throw it away, enjoy it again next week or next month when it works out better. But I think that's probably like the best thing is like really think about if they have leftovers and they're not able to use it that week, how can your followers kind of enjoy it again later? Is it freezer safe? And I think a lot of times I see people say it's not freezer safe because they haven't tested it and they don't want to upset, right, their followers, which makes total sense to me. But if you have any leftover, like try freezing just a little bit and seeing how it tastes. And if you think this tastes pretty close to how it was on the first day, encourage them to freeze their leftovers.
I like the idea of adding that into our workflow. I don't think maybe not, maybe there are, but not many, I would guess, food bloggers have a workflow after recipe development where they freeze a portion to truly see how it freezes and unfreezes. So I
Yeah.
love the idea of adding that to our workflow. And all that does, we just had the helpful content update with Google in March. This is helpful content. This is the stuff that your readers want to know. And if you're like, I always, it's part of my workflow. Every single time I develop a recipe, I take a small portion, I freeze it, and then I unfreeze it so I can actually tell you if it works. How incredible would that be if you became the person that people knew actually tried doing that and can tell you it froze well or it didn't? So I love that suggestion for food bloggers. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
I want to give you a challenge. I have a bag of I like diced, like really tiny frozen sweet potatoes. What would you use to make those? And I want anyone in the comments to also think of something you have in your freezer. And Michelle is we're going to challenge her today to tell us what to make with those leftover ingredients or items in your freezer. So if you have one, we're going to do Q&A now. If you have any questions for Michelle, but also, if you have something in your freezer that you're like, what should I make with this? This is the time to drop it in the comments. So we're going to start with this little tiny, teeny tiny sweet potatoes.
That's a really good question. I would say it depends how much. If I had a small amount, I would probably make like a breakfast hash for the kids because it'll be good. And that's something I know I would eat for a couple days in a row with breakfast. If it's like a really big portion and I want to like repurpose it, I would probably make some sort of like fall creamy blended soup. And so my personal rule is like I freeze things twice, but no more than that. But I only freeze it a second time if it's been cooked. So if I have like raw chicken that I took out of the freezer and then I made chicken noodle soup or chicken chili, I'll freeze that, but I won't freeze the chili like a third time because that to me is kind of like my personal rule. But I would either make like a fall soup or a breakfast hash.
I like that. And now that you said chili, I'm thinking a sweet potato chili would be
Oh,
so
I love chili. Actually, I would probably make a chili and take it
okay.
back. I
I know
love
chili's
chili.
so good, huh? Well, and I needed to do something with a pumpkin anyway, so maybe I'll do it inside of a pumpkin. Oh,
That would be really fun.
then I'll tag Super Cubes and be like,
I would
guess
love
what?
that. Or, you know, my mother-in-law makes like, I wish I had a recipe, the most amazing sweet potato cake. And she doesn't have a dice, but like she will like roast a bunch of sweet potatoes and then like scoop them out and put them in our 1 cup trays. And then she just like takes out a cube for her sweet potato and she has like a maple syrup glaze. I wish I had the recipe to share with you today, but she makes the most delightful sweet potato cake, which you can also freeze or you can just power through and eat it all, which it's so good that I would probably encourage you just to eat it all.
That sounds so good. Nicole says she loves sweet potato chili. Okay, so we're on board. I'm going to go find in my town a pumpkin. I have not seen them yet, but I'm going to find a pumpkin and I'm going to make a sweet potato chili inside a pumpkin, you guys. And then when you see it, you'll be like, hey, we were helping her develop that. Well, I grew up, my mom always made pumpkin soup for Halloween. So, but my kids like soup a lot less than they like chili. So I like the idea of like keeping tradition, but using something that's from my freezer and making something they love, which is chili. So I'm excited. Nicole also says, I have one tiny piece of codfish in my freezer and no idea what to do with it other than fry it and eat it as a snack. So, Michelle.
Okay, I am like the worst. I don't eat fish. So I'm like the worst person to come up with fish suggestions. I think the one other thing that I would say that I do with like our freezer stash, like I have this one thing is like Jake and I every once in a while we just do like an odds and ends dinner. And it's like not our favorite meal and it's not the most exciting meal. I don't usually photograph it for stories, but I'm like, what are these like 1 cup of this and half cup of that and one piece of like, let's just power through. And so I think if you're like really struggling for fun ideas, I think sometimes you just have to call it almost like a loss and say, we're taking 6 things from the freezer. It might be Mexican, it might be Italian, it might be Middle Eastern. We're just going to enjoy it all. And then that's going to let me have more space for more exciting things. I was thinking like one other thing. So it's, as you said, pumpkin, that is a little bit untraditional, but I worked at a summer camp one summer in Maine, back when I was in education. And my roommate that I was bunking with, I was a counselor, was like, oh, I have this like granola sauce recipe, but you know, it only uses like a third a cup of pumpkin and like a third a cup of applesauce. So I tripled the recipe so that I can use the full pumpkin. And so what I do, I don't eat that much granola, but I do have some today. So it's like, it's my lunch that I'm going to eat after this call. But I make this like big patch of granola sauce. It's just like spices, applesauce, pumpkin, the recipe is so forgiving. You can make it any which way you want with like cinnamon and nutmeg and all the good stuff and some coconut oil. And then I just thawed and I bake it with like oats and nuts, or however you eat granola. But I would say that's another fun, like sweet potato or pumpkin. If like, oh, what do I want to think about for like fall? You can blend it with applesauce and then bake it with oats, and it is delightful. And I'm like very excited to eat it shortly.
I love that. Well, and I was just thinking too, Lori, with that one piece of cod, you could, I love the idea. Like, okay, I have a family of 7 right now, so meals are massive. But I think how cute it will be when it's just Josh and I get to make dinner for 2. And I want to get those cookbooks that are like cooking for 2, or go to the websites that are like cooking for 2. So there you could be one like cooking for 1, and maybe there's like this delicious clam chowder that you could cut up little pieces of the cod to go in it to add more protein. I don't know, but like cooking for 1 situation where you make it into a soup, like a fish soup of some kind. There's many wonderful fish soups. I know if you don't eat fish, that sounds terrible, Michelle, but there are really good fish soups. So I was thinking that too. Lori says, sometimes when we have a lone piece of fish in the freezer, we cube it and add it to cauliflower fried rice with some veggies, soy, and an egg. I love that. That's
Great
such
idea.
and then Lori loves the idea of putting it in a single serving clam chowder. So, okay, we're gonna answer Lori's and then we will wrap it up. Lori has ham hocks in her freezer, but she doesn't want soup. So something we're gonna challenge you even more.
I feel so bad. I feel like the worst part. I don't eat ham for religious reasons, but if I had to take a guess, it sounds like it would be delicious with like beans.
Mhm.
Um, and like make a really flavorful pot of beans. And so I'm a big fan of sometimes just like, how do I like repurpose this into another ingredient that I can use later that even if I'm not using it now, that'll be like very smoky and flavorful. And so I love Rancho Gordo for beans. It's a like a small farm in Napa. Every bean of theirs has been delicious, but without ever having had ham, I would imagine that it can go pretty well in beans. And then you can use your beans for a variety of ways. Like you can put it in a stew one day if you do want a stew or soup. You can just have it on like the side with your lunch or breakfast. You can make a chili out of it, even if it has kind of that like ham undertone. But I would probably convert it into beans.
That's great. I remember my mom is the queen of using everything. So she taught us how to do the same. So if we had ham and she had a ham hock, it always went into a crock pot. So we have a recipe. Daff, will you look on This Vivacious Life and type in ham soup and put it in there? I know it's a soup, but my mom used to make this ham soup. So she'd put it in and then she'd rinse and then put beans in there and water. So that was it to start. 3 ingredients, which will cost you pennies to do because you already have the ham hock. And then she cooked it overnight and then she drained it because when the beans they let off kind of that blah, and so then she would put some more water over it and then add seasonings and spices. And then what she would do is she would take out half the beans and blend them so it became very very creamy, put them back in. And
Oh,
so
that's a good
always,
idea.
yeah, so kind of thickened it up. So we always had ham and bean soup. But as a kid, I was like, yeah. So as an adult, this recipe that Daphne's looking on This Vivacious Life, or I can just tell you it's This Vivacious Life and it's a ham and bean soup. I decided to add pomegranates because I wanted to liven it up again. I
Mm.
added a splash of pomegranate juice and then some fresh pomegranates go on top. There it is. And thank you, Daphne. You're the best. She's the best. We love her. And it brought it to life for me, like something a little bit more than just ham and bean soup. But I will tell you, before I came up with this recipe, I just made ham and bean soup, and I am not as talented as my mom. And I don't think I did it right the first time because I didn't put enough liquid. And so I went to put it in my kids' bowls, and it was like, and the kids were like, "It's a hard knock life for us." I'm all, I'm never making ham and bean soup again. It was so embarrassing. But then I learned that the beans soak up a lot of juice, and so I had to add more liquid, and then it was great. But my point is that everyone has mishaps. Everyone has times when they're like, "Well, that did not work." um, but I love the idea that you said, Michelle, too. I think that's great. So using it in beans, using it in soup, lots of different things. So thank you, Michelle, for being up for a challenge that we didn't tell you were going to do.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry, they're like two things I don't eat, but
Oh, that's okay.
I do see people cook them and I always think, oh, that is a fun dish. So hopefully uh, some of it was helpful.
Yeah, no, it's great. So thank you so much for joining us for episode 8 of Tastemaker Talk. And thank you to our amazing guest, Michelle, for joining us and sharing her knowledge and expertise. If you'd like to learn more of sustainable food practices and network with Michelle and the Supercubes team, then join us in Las Vegas for Tastemaker Conference 2025. Daphne will drop the link to grab your ticket for that. And don't forget to join us on September 11th for episode 9, where we will discuss diversification of income streams with Sandy Markle of Blueberry Consulting. We hope all of you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for popping in. I know a lot of people watch these later, so we always love the live interaction. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.